All right, we'll start now with, out of respect for everybody who has shown up on time and a few of you who showed up early. And I do expect there might be a couple of other pings because we think a few more people will be joining us today. It's a great opportunity once again in our community to come together around all things change. I'm Ursula Erasmus. I'm a senior partner at Issoria, and I am also the head of the Issoria Community. And I'm supported today by my fabulous colleague, Jen, who does all the great marketing, gets all the registration stuff out to you, challenges my thinking, and makes sure that each of our speakers is always ready and well organized with technology to be part of these events. So thanks, Jen, once again for helping us get here and get a great event on the table today. Today, we're welcoming Cameal Harris. So some of you who've joined many of our community events will know that we love to have authors, writers of all things change, come and talk to us in the community. I've had the opportunity to get to know Cameal a little bit. And one of the things I would like to share about getting to know Cameal is she truly is what I think of as a change practitioner. When she couldn't find something she needed, she created it. When she created it, she then made sure that everyone who was going to pick up her book knew what to do with it. And that to me is the essence of a change practitioner. All of you on the call today will in some way be like that. We are self-starters. We are not ever sidelined by things that are missing. We're inventive and creative. And we also always have an idea about what is really going to help make change work. And so in the case of Cameal, for her, that was writing a book to fill a void that she was very clearly able to see. And I'll let her talk more about that. We're very happy to have you here today, Cameal. It's fabulous. And what we are going to let you talk about today is why you wrote your book. And then I know that there's two special topics that you also want to share. So without further ado, Cameal, I'm going to hand the mic over to you. For everybody on the call, I'm going to ask you to stay on mute, hold your questions until the end, and then you know, if you want to put your question just so that you don't forget it, you can pop it in the chat function. But what will happen is when we come to the Q&A section, Cameal can pick off your questions and answer them. And then, of course, if you've also got questions about the community, if you're new to the Issoria Change community, you're welcome to ask those questions too. So Cameal, without further ado, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Ursula. And hello, everyone. It's an absolute pleasure to be here today. So Ursula did an amazing job of introducing me, but just a little bit more. I am a Jamaican living in Dallas, Texas. I've been in the space of change for a number of years, and I'm very passionate when it comes to helping others and helping the community. And it's an absolute pleasure to be here today. So just give me 1 minute while I share my presentation with you guys. Perfect. Again, guys, I am Cameal, and I am the creator of the Ridier methodology and practical approach to organizational change management. So why I created the Ridier methodology and why I wrote this book. So the reason why I created this is because I saw a gap. Like I was coaching and working as an advisor as well as a consultant. And when I would work with others within the industry, either they are new to consulting, they probably have done change management but haven't done consulting, or completely new to change management. And I would recommend them, okay, go ahead and take this certification. I'll always hear the same problem. And that was that, what they have learned in that certification program versus applying that to real life scenarios, there was a gap. So what I did was, it was during working with one of my coaching clients, I figured out a way to make the process of applying change, especially for us consultants, memorable. And that is how I came up with the acronym Ridier. So I spent hours of research putting this application together, along with my own practical experience and designing and created this book and designing this methodology. So Ridier offers a practical approach for consultants. And these are the different phases of Ridier, and this is what it stands for. So when I examine what are some of the things that I know that we should do or usually do during or implementation, from onboarding all the way to cut over and go live, these are the different areas that I came up with. So first, for research. So during the research, we look at those SWOT analysis. We look at the current state of the organization, the strength, the current strengths of whatever their current way of doing things today, whether that might be in most cases that I've worked in is mostly technology changes. What were some of the weaknesses or gap within those realm? You know, what are the opportunities to improve that, and what are some of the risk to this project or threat to this project? Also looking at our SOW or scope of work, which I call our roadmap to change or roadmap to the project. Looking at that scope of work and identify what is the business case and what we're trying to solve. Also creating timelines, and timeline that specifically goes with the project timeline. And how do we create those timelines if needed for an agile environment or within an agile change? And aligning KPIs, right? So I look at what those deliverables are, and we work together with stakeholders and see how are we going to measure those deliverables, and then navigating success, creating that vision for change. You know, what will change look like, creating or change team or change network, all the things that I know, you know, this community is quite aware of. And then we go into the investigate stage, which is about a lot of process mapping, understanding governance, not just formal governance, but those informal governance as well within an organization, looking at different map job roles and seeing how the change will impact different roles, and creating a RACI. So, you know, most of us already know what our change RACI is, which is who will be responsible for what, accountable, who do we need to consult or inform. And going into the, you know, the discovery, that's when we do more of those mapping and those analysis and looking at the impact and looking at mitigation. During implementation, how do we facilitate workshop? What are those milestone dependencies, resources that we might need, right? And like I said, being agile in the way we do change, always check in with our stakeholders or with our sponsors, you know, while we are working to create things, to make sure that we are remaining flexible within our approach. And of course, my favorite, engagement, managing relationships, doing OCM stand-up meetings, you know, meeting with a steering committee, creating a training plan and engaging users during UAT training and development. And of course, reinforce, which is our sustainability, how we're going to sustain the change and coach and empower our stakeholders. But so today, I want to shift the focus a little bit from Ridier. And I want to speak to this community and something that, you know, most of us, you know, struggle with from time to time, and that is mastering our collaboration between change managers and project managers. The art of collaboration and how communication can help with this. So let me know if you guys are ready for me to dive into the art of collaboration and how to build those relationships. You know, just type a yes in the chat. We are ready to go. I hope you guys are excited as I am to present this to you. So if you guys are ready, just go ahead and type a yes in the chat. Right? So harmonizing change and project management together, you know, it's that perfect dynamic to achieving success, right? So by, you know, through effective teamwork and communication, there is nothing that we cannot accomplish, no problems that we can't tackle together. And today I'm going to show you some tips on how to specifically do that. So when change and project managers come together, you know, when that force unites, it's absolutely beautiful. Personally, I've always had a really good relationship with my project managers or my program managers. I've never really looked at it as silo, as what I'm doing is separate, but we are all working towards the same goal. And even though, of course, we don't report to our project managers, but it's also beneficial to keep that relationship going. So here are 10 tips, are 10 things that I would recommend for us to do during our project to further build our relationships. And what I've also done is I created a template. There's a template that I'm going to share with you guys today for free. And Jen is going to put that in the chat. You can just click on that and put in your email, and you should put in your email address, and that email should come to you. So one of the first thing is to define clear roles and responsibility. It's really important in the beginning of a project to meet with our project team, and at times, get a gauge of how much they know about the change management process, and clearly detail out what's going to be the different roles and responsibility for the project manager versus the change managers. And this is where a RACI, a really detailed RACI, would come in, right? So for example, on my last project, I feel like one thing that made it quite successful was creating that RACI up front. It was that in the beginning, we look at some of the risks of the project, and then we went into a detailed RACI. But we didn't just create a chart. We went really deep into understanding, helping the stakeholder, like defining each roles, or what each responsibility and what that meant. So when it comes to like who's responsible for what, like create a detailed approach as what that means, because everyone might have a different understanding. Who's accountable for what, a deeper understanding of that, what it is to consult, and what does it mean to inform. So I encourage you that this is one of the first things that I think should be get done, so everyone clearly understand what is expected of each person. Also establish open communication channels, right? So it depends on what project you're on. Some people use Teams, others use Slacks, but I would say having communication channels that are really quick and easy, like direct messaging, so you and the project team can keep in touch, not just on a formal basis, but you might need to reach out to your project manager, or they might need to reach out to you in case of any event that might happen. So having an established and open communication channel is always effective. Ensure that you align goals and objectives for the shared vision. Again, the vision is always the same, right? Regardless of what that project is. Regardless of that project, we are trying to, make sure if it's a software or a technology project, we want to ensure that we are on time, on budget as far as the project managers are concerned. But we as change managers are responsible to ensure that adoption is taking place. And trust me, when you work with your project manager and you help him or her to understand that your role is important and this is how we can work together, at the end of the day, I believe it all comes down to the right attitude, right? And for many people, I've never seen an instant where you come with the right attitude and you're working with that project manager and they are going to be resistant to your help. Most of us as humans, we embrace that, and especially if we feel appreciated within that moment. So again, it goes back to that fourth point, foster mutual respect and understanding. It's just about making people within the project team feel respected. Let them feel that, try to, even if there is a disagreement, try to try to see it from their perspective. Um, a person said to me one time, it was in a consulting environment, and this is a tip that I felt was quite useful early on in my career. was they said that, and this is not just for the project team, this could be for the client. For example, you're trying to show an individual project team, the client, that, okay, it's best to do things A or B or this way. And they might have a different approach, right? So our job is not to really go to them and be like, okay, what you have to say is wrong. It doesn't make any sense. But what we want to do is we want to meet them where they are. Meaning, we're going to have that mindset of understanding, listening to understand where they are coming from. Actually put yourself in their shoes, for a minute. Just take away what you're thinking for a minute and be open-minded. And from that place, when you meet them where they are, then you can together steer them in the direction that you think is best. But people need to feel understood, right? And that is how you're going to get effective collaboration. For the fifth point, and encourage joint problem solving. It's always good. People want to feel needed. It's part of our nature as human. So it's don't feel like because you have a problem and it's a change problem, communicate whatever it might be. You cannot elicit the consult or advice of your project team. Bring them on that journey of that problem solving. Say to them, hey, I'm having this problem. What do you think about that? How would you approach it, right? And by doing that is you're bringing them into the bigger picture, and they feel a part of it. So even though, yes, you're going to have your project team and the change team, by bringing them into that, when it comes to problem solving, it becomes one team, right? Just one change team. And those projects are just beautiful. They run a lot smoother. So bring them onto that journey and go over those different challenges that you might have. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to ask for their input, regardless of, we have two different skill sets. It's quite fine. So share success and learnings. I always feel like it's always great when we share wins together, when both teams share success together, and when you share lesson learned together. Bring them into that journey of sheer success. A thing that I have done in the past is we would have like different touch points on Fridays, maybe informal with the project, and the change team will come together and talk about some wins for the week or a lesson learned. Keep it light, keep it informal. If you're working in person or if your team is close to you guys, it's okay to go out and have a glass of wine together, do some chit chat. It doesn't always have to be strictly about project or about work, but it's about building relationship and understanding the human dynamic around building those relationships. Leverage each other's strength, right? So of course, as change managers, our strength is the people side. We have a lot of those soft skills. And at times, a lot of us as change managers are also project managers. So we might have technical skills as well. And our project team, of course, their strengths are going to be more the technical side. And you might say, Cameal, but what happened when the project team doesn't listen to me, or they're pushing back, or they feel like this isn't necessary? I have been there. I have been in situations where I will suggest something and the project team might push back. They were like, this is not important, this is not necessary. But it's all about, the science of how we engage with that individual, right? Again, going back to understanding their point of view and then bringing it back over onto yours. But there's a way that we also can leverage the strengths of those teams and let them feel that we're doing this, right? So develop joint metrics and KPIs. One of the things that I've done, like even though, yes, there is different adoption KPIs for change, we always have those reviews together. We always look at it, because what we do is we operate as one whole. That is the goal, really. And by doing that, to be honest, by having those goals and KPIs together, you're going to start seeing how your project team or even your technical team start operating more as a change team, and the change team operating more of a project team. I really believe, and I've seen it myself, that this collaboration is possible and quite effective. Ensure you have leadership support. I understand that it depends on where you're working. Maybe the dynamic might be different with how they create these different groups. Leadership might be like, okay, no, you have the project team over there, let them focus on that. You're the change person, focus on that. But we have to educate our leaders, we have to coach our leaders to understand why it's important for the team to work together. And 9 times out of 10, they will be on board and they will support it. Conflict resolution mechanism. So within that template that I've shared with you, there's a tab for conflict resolution, some things that you should keep in mind, a few steps about conflict resolution. You know, conflict will arise. It is natural in the working world, in any relationship, but it's how we approach those conflicts that matters. So remember, unity is strength. And when there is teamwork and collaboration, wonderful things can be achieved. So a personal case study of mine, so how I achieve how I achieve strategic collaboration as a change manager with my project manager on one of my projects, right? So a little background on this project. It wasn't the ideal situation. I came in quite late. They brought me in as the consultant really late on the project. And of course, many of us have had that experience, I'm quite sure, where the organization might not think that they need change up front. And they are thinking, okay, it's just training and communication. I can have my HR or com team work on communication. And why not have the project team do the training, right? But the thing is, a lot of more times than none, there comes a roadblock or a problem when it comes to adoption, right? And it's unfortunate when we are bring on during that time. So just imagine that for a minute. So I came in, and of course, there was already established relationships within this project. I was the new kid on the block. And of course, there was different engagement that was quite awkward. But believe it or not, like that project was one of my most successful projects. We had maximum adoption. Me and the project team became really close friends. And here are some of the things that I did. So I had the right attitude. So even though the situation was quite challenging, my mindset, the attitude that I had towards it was positive, right? I came in with that positive attitude with the focus on building the relationship, understanding where they are right now, and seeing what gaps I need to fill. I schedule regular joint meetings for both teams to discuss progress, challenges, and status updates. So this foster transparency and help with any early identification of issues. And they were issues, guys. Trust me, they were. So that was something that I did right up front. And of course, people were busy. There were times when they weren't able to meet. No one likes a lot of meeting, and that's why I suggest those informal communication channel. Because me and my project manager, we were always, texting on Teams or reaching out. I'll create comms. I'll send it back send it to my project manager, especially when it comes to metrics or where we are in the project timeline. And it was just an amazing working dynamic. And there are times that my project manager gave me great tips when it came to communication. I conduct joint planning sessions to develop a shared roadmap that integrates both the change management and project management milestone. So what I did was I took the project management timeline, what they have planned, their plan on a page, and right underneath that, I create my change management plan on a page to ensure that there's synergy in the way that we are working. And even in agile environment, this wasn't an agile project, but even in an agile environment, this is quite possible. So I organize training sessions and workshops to help us both group understand each other, roles, challenges, and contribution, and build mutual respect. So what I did was early on, I did sessions on training the team on change management, the different process of change management, how individuals go through change, why they're what I'm going to be expecting from them, the help that I'm going to ask of them, and just to be there as a coach. Sometimes just as a listening ear to the project team. So I played that part of coach and mentor. And it wasn't, again, to go back to the right attitude, it wasn't a matter of, ensuring that people understand. It's not about reporting or who is in charge of what. It was just building that relationship to create that level of collaboration. So I developed decision-making process that involved both me, the change manager, and the project management perspective. So when there was times when I needed to make a difficult decision, or I might be stuck on a decision, even though, yes, I'm going to get sign off from leadership, I brought my project manager onto that. Right. And it wasn't just my project manager, it was the account manager and, a few people from the development team. We had those discussions, and you'll be surprised, like they had great insight. We celebrate success. We did a lot of celebration together. My project manager had a baby. I did a baby shower, so not just professional aspect of coming together, but also personal, right? And it was quite a great project. So I also identify and leverage the strength of each group. So again, when it came to like creating those trainings, communication content, I made sure that we had to be in sync. I don't know about you guys, but a lot of the projects that I'm on, I consider myself a generalist, and I'm mostly in the space of tech projects. I go from different system to different system depending on the project. I have some knowledge and understanding of particular system, but I am by no means an expert, right? So for me to effectively help with adoption, I need to gain, to get that expertise of my project team. And that's what I do to create a maximum benefit for stakeholders. And the final thing was I developed those KPIs together. It was beautiful. And in the end, we created a beautiful case study that was shared through the larger organization. And again, as I said before, right, conflict is a must. We always will have conflict. And these are some steps that are some ways that I would, advise you guys to do conflict resolution. So first, where we start right here is identify the conflict. So you want to identify the parties involved and determine the root cause of the conflict. Second, assess the impact. Consider factors such as, timeline, resources, team morale, and overall project success when it comes to resolving conflict. Gather perspectives. So collect input from all parties involved in the conflict to ensure that each perspective feels heard and they feel understood. Develop a resolution plan. So whenever a conflict arises, whether it is with someone in your team, with you personally, say for example, it is with a member in your team, those individuals need to feel that when I come to you with a conflict, I'm expecting a resolution, I'm expecting you to act on it, right? So we always want to create a plan, a conflict resolution plan for whatever conflict arises. And again, that link that I shared with you guys, it will go through step by step of how to achieve this. Then we want to implement the plan. So we don't just want to create the plan, we want to implement the plan. And again, it's important for us to have a timeline when it comes to resolving the conflict. We want to communicate this back to the individual who has presented that conflict to us by saying, okay, thank you for bringing this to my attention. And I will look into it within the next 2 weeks, within the next 3 weeks. Then you want to follow up with them and say, okay, this is the plan. This is what I've heard. I've spoken to both parties. This is how we can resolve it. And finally, always follow up. So conduct a meeting to ensure the conflict has been resolved and discuss lesson learned and implementation strategy to prevent similar conflicts in the future. So that is it for my presentation. And I want to open the floor now if there's any questions, Jen and Ursula, if there's anything that came up in the chat that anyone would like to ask me.
So do pop your questions in the chat if you have any, or your comments. They don't have to be questions. They can be comments such as, yes, I've experienced this many times before. And while we're giving people the opportunity to do that, I just want to say, Cameal, your statement right at the beginning about having many wonderful project managers in your working experience is very encouraging. Obviously, I started my career a number of decades before you started yours, and I think some of the most challenging relationships I had were with project managers. But by the same token, when I had a good project manager, you're right, it was absolute magic. And, you know, sometimes people just know intuitively what they need to do, but most often we will find ourselves working with project managers who are good people, but just as you said, don't get what is the job of change. And so, you know, starting right at the beginning and sort of joining forces makes such a difference. So that really resonated with me. I was like, and I thought, that woman was born under a lucky star.
No, I am quite lucky when it comes to that. I don't know if it's okay, Jennifer. Can people come off chat and speak?
Sure. People can come off mute if they have a question.
I mean, mute.
Yeah, no problem. Or just a comment.
Right.
I do note that Teams is being particularly slow today in response time. So we will be patient, because I noticed when people were saying yes to your, are you ready? It took a very long time for all of those comments to drop in. So folks, you're welcome to come off mute if you have a question or a comment for Cameal.
And folks, I want to touch on something that Ursula said a while ago about, you know, yes, I've been quite fortunate. I feel like a lot of that is attributed to the attitude that I had. You know, we are energetic beings and we can sense energy. We can sense when people want to work with us or when they do not want to work with us. And I'm not saying any of us is doing that, but more often than none, when you have that right attitude, regardless of how that person is coming at you, regardless of their, you know, their attitude, it really makes a difference to just really stay grounded in who you are. Don't take things personally. I tend not to. And really continually work on coaching that person. Just being really good to them. More times than none, they will come around, regardless of who that person is. They will come around, guys.
So we have
some
questions in the chat. Can you see the chat, Cameal? We've got 2 questions in the chat now. So the first one is, could you share some metrics or KPIs that make more sense to clients to track adoption? So I'll let you take that one first.
Sure. Okay. So a few that comes to mind, now let me think on this really quick, is of course we are going to measure the rate of adoption. I'm going to give you a practical tip now, guys. Not a textbook tip. Do not come up with your metrics by yourself. You want to sit with your client, look over that business case, what they're trying to achieve, and understand what are some metrics that are important to them. What does success of this project would look like to them? So that question, to answer that question, and to answer it at the best of my ability in a practical standpoint, that is my best and absolute advice. Because guess what? You might think, okay, I'm going to measure rate of adoption, I'm going to measure this, but for the client and for the client perspective, that might not be what is a success factor for them when it comes to change. So the first thing I would advise is sit with your client and understand what their perspective might be.
I love that, Camille. And I would add to that is also, don't just talk to the manager or the functional head or what have you. Talk to the people. People will tell you what it will feel like and look like for them when they have successfully made the switch to a new way of working. So absolutely, I think that's a really, really good answer.
Yes.
Constanza, does that answer, are you happy with that answer?
Super happy. I agree with the comment. Yeah, I love the answer. So
Great. Thank you very much for a great question.
Involving the client always.
Yes.
Yeah.
Always.
Perfect. Great
Thank you.
question. Thank you. The next question comes from Aura, and it says, have you dealt with a project where it was difficult to make the project team understand the importance of change management? And how did you handle that situation?
Yes, most definitely, most definitely. You know, as you remember in my case study, sorry about that. As you remember, I mentioned in my case study, especially from a project that you're not there from the beginning, it can be quite difficult. Again, I go back to the right attitude. There was resistance. They didn't understand, but I came with the right attitude in the beginning of that project. And I had those meetings with them on like an informal level for them to understand where I'm coming from, why my role is important, and what I will be doing. Then I had a training session where, it wasn't long, probably 30 minutes, where I went over change management, the aspect of change management. And if that didn't answer your question, just let me know. I can elaborate a lot more. Sorry, Ursula, you're on mute.
Sorry, I did that because I was coughing. Aura, did you have a follow-up question?
Yes, it's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. And the next question comes from Heather. You mentioned building rapport. What are some of the methods you favor for building relationships quickly? Very good question.
Yes, that's a very good question. The method I favor for building relationship quickly is always those informal meetings, right? So it's people meeting. We're at the end of the day, we're just people, so it's just building those because I found that when your project team, they don't necessarily have to like you, but when they respect you and they understand that you're just there to help, they're more receptive. So it's not about being super formal all the time. It's having those informal conversations, those coffee chats early on, those one-on-one, especially if you have that one individual that is your main resistor, that is pushing back, why we need change management. I don't know why she's here. That is the person that you want to work with the most. When you get that one resistor on board, oh my, it's magic happens. Everything runs smoother after that. So I would say to reiterate is that identify that one individual that's giving you the most grief, and work on establishing and building out that relationship. And guys, like if you were able to get that file, it goes over step by step on how you can do that. Like on the different methods. So it's going to answer that question. It's going to help you. That Excel document will definitely help you out.
That's great, Camille. And I've got a little anecdotal story to that. So when I first arrived in Canada, I didn't really understand the cultural divide between Quebec, so French Canadians, and everyone else in Canada. And I was working for an organization that had acquired the Quebec Tel company, the telecommunications company. And so they said, basically all rolling their eyes, who is going to go to Quebec and help these people? And I suppose somewhat ignorantly, but also I'm a rebel and I like a bit of a challenge. So I said, I'll go and do that. And they said, well, do you speak French? And I said, well, I did a few years of French in high school. How bad can it really be? And off I went to Quebec. And the interesting thing that aligns with what you were saying, Camille, is I arrived in the office the first day. Everybody knew I was coming, but nobody seemed really willing to want to jump into any work, etc. And about the middle of the afternoon, around 2 o'clock, I was invited to go and meet with the CEO. And so I went to his office, really nice fellow, and he said, you can take the rest of the afternoon off. And I thought, oh, here we go. I'm being blown off right at the beginning. He said, because before we work, we have to eat chicken and drink wine. And I did not realize that this was actually a real thing for them culturally, is that you do not start working together until you've shared a meal together. And so that evening, he got 17, so his direct reports and a few other people. So he got 17 people together. We went to a restaurant and we ate chicken and we drank wine. And the next day we started working together, and it really was a magic project. And I remember coming back to the, the acquiring company head office, and they said, how did you make it work? And I said, I've got the secret sauce. Now we have to eat chicken and drink wine. But it's so true. We are humans first. And so that's really, really important. And I love your answer. Thank you, Cameal. Great. Heather, did that help you think about how to build rapport quickly?
Yes, thank you for the responses and the additional color. It's a lovely story.
Yeah, no problem at all. Okay, I see someone else. Dahlia, you have your hand up. You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I have my hand up because I was listening attentively to both of you, Cameal and Ursula, and I found very positive. However, I had a little comment. I am trying to eliminate the word resistor and resistance because I found that this is very negative and assumes or presumes that people are necessarily negative towards change. And for me, I think it's not necessarily a resistance, it's a worriness about what's going to happen to me, to my team, to my culture, the way we work. And those are very legitimate questions that human beings have. It's not a resistance. I definitely insist in just eliminate this word because it's very negative. Right. And I try to go always with constructive and positive and meaningful change. So for that word doesn't help at all because it's putting people against others. And yeah, I don't know. I'm too I am too of a dreamer, but I think it's helping me to avoid putting labels on people helps a lot when I do my engagements and I work with them. So yeah, it was a little comment just about it.
Oh, that's wow, Delia. That you knocked that nail on the head. You are quite right. And the truth of the matter is, and I did, there's some research in the book on this. Not everyone is a resistor. Not everyone looks at change as negative. A lot of people see it as a positive thing. So thank you so much for bringing up that point. I believe that is quite necessary to change our wording, right, on the way that we approach this. So great point. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Thanks.
I love that too, Dahlia. I mean, I am in your camp. I really try not to use the word resistant, or certainly try not to label people with that. So I like to help, especially managers, understand, where does resistance come from? It's one of those things that when we understand that it comes from people's fear and anxiety, we can actually start right at the beginning of our change program, building support for the change. So if we think about walking in someone else's shoes, as you said, Cameal, we can actually realize fears are real because those are things that we could predict might happen, or there's a probability that they would happen. And those could be high or low probabilities. And then anxiety is more almost like a cloud. Anxiety is sort of over the whole thing. And so when I talk with people leaders, which is very much a focus of my practice, it's like, what is going to make people fearful and what is going to make people anxious? And then if we start right at the beginning, covering off those things, what we do is we lessen the chance for fear to occur, and we lessen the chance for people to find themselves feeling anxious. Therefore,
Right.
we don't have any resistance. So, many managers have said to me, oh, the most difficult thing is managing resistance. And I say, yes. And let's talk about where it comes from. Because if we can understand that and start building support for the change right at the beginning, the chance that you're going to bump into what you call resistance is very, very low to non-existent. So thank you. That's a wonderful comment. And I love your take on it, Cameal, and I'm 100% in that camp. Try to use the word as little as possible, and certainly don't label a person as resistant.
Right. Something that I've seen that helps with that, Delia, that negative connotation is helping leaders or even our change team understand the psychological aspect of what's happening to the brain during change. And within my book, I talk a little bit about some research from positive psychology that shows that, okay, no matter, and this is something that we can help to mitigate those fears, like you said, and uncertainty, that no matter what it is, our brain is quite adaptable. There's research on this. So some people are numbers people, some people like research. And when we present that level of research to them, they'll be like, okay, it's a part of the process. I know I am like that. I know I am like that, like, whatever it might be, even when it comes to like working out, when I start working out and it was so difficult, if I understand that this is part of the process, it helped me to push through a little bit more. And also, guys, I am, for anyone that's interested, I'm giving away free ebook copies of my book today. And like I said, there's quite a bit of research in it. I'm really excited for you guys. And Jennifer, she will put that link in the chat where you can download that ebook copy.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Cameal. Very generous of you. So I think many people will be appreciative and get their eyeballs on that for sure. We have one other comment here, which is about the constraint being on time, which I 100% agree with. And then the time to have coffee and connect personally, and teams are spread worldwide. 100%. Those are things that make it really, really difficult. One of the things I will share before I let Cameal answer this is my favorite proverb is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so sometimes we have to consciously make the choice to push back the boundaries of time, or maybe put ourselves in a little bit more of a time constraint in order to invite people in so that we can go far. So Cameal, I'll hand over to you to comment on that.
Beautifully said. I had a project where, speaking of time, right? They brought me in 4 months before go live. Crazy, madness. There was no assessment done. Nothing was prepared. No one, it was so that when I had my first workshop, there was one of those main stakeholders that was in that workshop. She said this was the first time she's hearing about it. 4 months before go live. But I always made it my point of duty to build relationships. I'm going to give you guys a practical tip of something that I do that was quite effective. And I love to do this for in-person workshop or in-person event. When I'm doing workshops to understand the change plan or understand what's going on, I've always be very strategic in my approach. For example, I understand how human operates, and there's a lot of things that people are not going to say within a group. But when you meet with that person by themselves, it's absolutely beautiful what they will share with you. So I carefully planned out breaks during my session. And for these breaks, it's actually working session for me. I will go around and I will ask them, hey, how are you doing today? What you think about this? And they were like, man, I don't know. I'm a little bit worried. And I, gently at times, it just depends on the person. I reassure them, look them in the eye and like, I hear you and I'm here to make this better. It really worked, guys, every single time. So even though, yes, there's time constraint, there's always time for relationship building. In fact, this is quite necessary. So if we look at that, if we had that mindset of this is quite important, and we are very creative in this technique, it will benefit. It will pay out in the long run. I hope that helps.
That's great, Cameal. And I was just thinking back, when I still worked in a corporate role, I had staff in 5 countries and culturally very, very different. One of the things that I would do is I would ask people, get on a call just with a single person or sometimes with a small group and say, let's just reflect on past changes we've been through and what were the things that worked really, really well, and ask people to think about their positive experiences, because then they will tell you, whatever it was that I might not realize from a cultural perspective that those things worked really well. So this, then you show an interest in the individual and their history, which is really important. And then I always love asking people, the follow-up question is, and how are you going to make sure that happens again? So immediately you're bringing them in to being part of the success, that inviting people in. And people will pick it up. I've never had anyone say to me ever in 35 years, I've never had anyone say to me, you know what, I'm not interested in that. I've had people say to me, oh, I hope that I'm, good enough, or this, that, and the next thing, but I've never had anyone say no. So I think it's all about, that time spent and building those relationships is all about inviting people in.
Yes, beautifully said, Ursula.
Wonderful. So we are at time now, and I want to just wrap the session up, first of all, by thanking you so much, Cameal, for being here. I loved your 10 tips on getting along better with project managers. I wish I had had those 25 years ago, but that's really great. Anything that's practical, I think, is greatly appreciated by this community. I think you have probably been blessed by having great PMs to learn about things that you can then share. So that's absolutely amazing. I really loved your comment about meeting people where they are. It's so true. If you try and meet a person where they are not ready to be met, you just will not get ahead. You might get some nodding heads in the beginning, and ultimately you find, wow, there's a wall of something that's gone up here. What is actually happening? And we need to meet people where they are. And when we meet them where they are, we have the opportunity to actually go on a journey together to good places, because it's all about making change work. And so as we come to the end of this session, I would encourage everybody who's been with us here today, literally, I think from Chile to places in Europe and Canada, from the Northern Hemisphere to the South, East and West hemispheres of the world, I'd encourage you all as change practitioners to depend really and trust yourselves more. If you've been called to work in change, some of these things just trust yourself. Sorry, I'm going to have to go on mute. I have the 100-day cough and it's really not pleasant. Cameal, do you have any closing words?
Yes, I want to just thank the community for joining today. I want to echo what Ursula said about trusting oneself. I have learned throughout my career that I'm the best practitioner when I am being Cameal. There's no one else I can do better than me, right? So trust yourself. You don't have to do it my way or Ursula way or any other person's way, but find your own groove, find your own way of doing it. Trust your intuition. Put yourself in other shoes when it comes to relationship building and ask yourself, if I were this person, what would I want? How would I want to be communicated with? What are some of the ways that would help me? And once you do that, it is golden, guys. Don't overthink it. Let it flow. And thank you again for joining us today. And it was an absolute pleasure to be here and present for this community.
And we look forward to seeing you all at our next event. So you will hear from Jennifer. You'll know what's coming. And so we'll see you all again soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.